Hey, howdy, hello. It's 8 a.m. and I'm recording a video. I have never in my life, this is Shannon Kringen, Goddess Kringen, Seattle, and I have never in my life gotten up so early to record a video monologue. I am taking a stand-up comedy class at the Freehold Theater in Seattle, and it's taught by Dan Hurwitz. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. I think I am. Dan Hurwitz, thank you so much for your class. We just had our first class recently, and I am so inspired. My life is a bit complicated in terms of my schedule, and I work as a standardized patient for medical students and an art model and dog walker and a pet sitter, and I do artwork and I'm doing all these different projects. And I am very chaotic in my brain, and yet I love to write. And last night in the acting class, stand-up comedy class, there's five of us in the class, and we're all very different individual people. And I'm happy to be with the other people that are there. And I was thinking about, we were talking about the different kinds of comedy. There's kind of like one-liners, like comedians that get on stage and they think about all the absurd things. Like they're like, do you ever notice this? Do you ever notice that? And they do like these one-liner, like they point out observations that are unusual about being on planet Earth, about the eccentric things people do and how amusing and funny that can be. Um, some of the comedians tell stories about their actual life, or you don't even know. Who knows if the comedian is telling a true story or making it up? It doesn't matter, but they're just telling stories that are amusing and funny about eccentric people in their lives or eccentric, families or, you know, and then there's people who do weird voices, people who do normal voices, people who talk loud, who talk quiet, who act really goofy, who say really surprising things. And then there's different kinds of, like, there's people that communicate with the audience and they talk about regular things that everybody can relate to, but then they have their own unique take on it. Like they talk about going to the grocery store or doing ordinary things, but then they have their own weird little funny story about that normal ordinary thing. And then there's comedians who talk about weird topics. And I think that in some ways I'm a really regular person, but in some ways not. Like I'm a left-handed only child who has synesthesia, meaning when I hear music, I see shapes in my head. And I did a public access TV show for 15 years every week for 28 minutes. I'm one of the naked bicyclists in the Fremont Summer Solstice Parade in Seattle. So I spent a lot of time being naked in front of people in terms of working with medical students and getting a script and acting out aches and pains. Like I'm an actor for medical students. Um, and I have been nude in front of people who draw me and paint me and photograph me for 33 years. And yet I'm shy and afraid to go to a dinner party and not comfortable going to a dinner party. And then as a little kid, I remember seeing Shirley Temple on TV. My first rock star was Shirley Temple, the performer who take glasses off. See, I'm really tired. That's why I got my glasses on. It's like too bright for me. It's like I'm sleepy. I wanted to sleep in, but I was just too excited to talk about. When I was a little kid, I remember being a stage kid. You know how they say stage parents? I was a stage kid. I was like I wanted to promote my parents. You know how, like, when you're a little kid and you sing and dance and you tap dance, and then your parents want to promote you and go, my little kid is a tap dancer, and I'm going to promote my little kid to be a tap dancer. I didn't have that. I didn't have stage parents because my parents are both very talented and sensitive and creative. My mom does visual art and studies Eastern philosophy and quantum physics and things like that. My mom is like a really, smart, interesting person who's got a lot of depth. And my dad writes his own folk music and comedy, but he didn't actually go on stage with it. And he still hasn't gone on stage with it. And that's totally fine. I'm not here to judge. But as a little kid, I was like, come on, mom, come on. I wanted my mom to, like, get out there. get out there and be famous like Andy Warhol. I remember thinking that I wanted my mom to like, mass produce her art and promote it and get it out there and like be on the cover of a magazine. I wanted my mom to be a famous artist for some reason. And I wanted my dad to get up on stage and I wanted him to write a hit song and get on the radio and do comedy and music and have like a variety show. And then I thought when I grow up, I'll be on my dad's variety show and I'll wear a costume. And I just remember thinking this when I was like, not three. When I was three, I saw Shirley Temple on TV, and five and six, I saw Shirley Temple, and I wanted to be like Shirley Temple. I wanted to sing and dance and act and dance up and, tap dance up and down the stairs with Bojangles and do all that kind of fun, magical stuff that Shirley Temple did and move people emotionally, inspire people. I just remember having that urge as a little kid. And you could say maybe it's partly because I wanted more attention. But I think I always wanted that. I always wanted to communicate. I always wanted to get a microphone and communicate, and yet I was always shy. And now I drive around in my art car in Seattle of my Honda Fit with rhinestones all over it. So I feel like I could write comedy about what it's like to drive around in my art car and have everybody waving and smiling at me. I can write about being a stage kid, like I wanted to promote my parents. I also wanted them to promote me. I wanted my parents to encourage me more to sing and dance and act. And I auditioned for Cornish, uh, God, way back in the early 2000s. And then I got scared and dropped out. But I did audition for the acting conservatory of Cornish College of the Arts here in Seattle. And I auditioned and I got in and then I dropped out. I got scared and I dropped out. So many years ago. And I've taken several acting classes at Freehold Theater. I've taken acting step one, acting step two, improv with Matt Smith from Almost Live. Really funny guy, really smart, funny guy. I took recently a voice class with Meg McLinn, and a great actress. I took solo performance with Mariah C. Kaminsky, another great actress performer who now I think lives in Pittsburgh and helps run an acting school in Pittsburgh. I forgot the name of it, Pennsylvania. And then I took a George Lewis is another talented actor and performer. I think he's moved to Buenos Aires, Argentina, but he taught a movement class. So I took solo performance, I took voice over and voice. So I've taken several acting classes. Let's see, wait. I took voice, movement, acting step one, step two, improv, performance poetry, spoken word. Those are the classes I've taken. And now I'm taking stand-up comedy with Dan. So Dan Hurwitz. So if you look him up, he's got videos on YouTube, comedy. So now I'm thinking of all the things. And then I was raised by a dad who taught me all about comedy, who Richard Pryor and Jonathan Winters. My dad actually had lunch with Jonathan Winters. My dad actually taught tennis to Paul Sorvino, the actor. I mean, interesting stuff. My dad grew up in Burbank, California. Um, so I have comedy. Like I learned about comedy as a kid, and I always loved the skits on Saturday Night Live and Dennis, wait, Farley. What's the guy? What's the Chris Farley, um, and John Belushi and Gilda Radner and Chevy Chase and all of the Dan Aykroyd, the Blues Brothers, the movie The Blues Brothers, all of this. Like I grew up in 60, I was born in 68, so I grew up in the 70s and 80s and 90s. And I was just exposed to Gilda Radner and Lily Tomlin and Richard Pryor and Sam Kinison and Lucille Ball and Carol Burnett and all of the younger comedians that are out now. I don't know all the names of the people, but he showed us in the stand-up comedy class, he showed us like three or four clips of different comedians who do different styles, like one-liners, stories, people who make strange observations about their family life or about being married or getting divorced or, observational comedy. You can talk about ordinary things, but in your own peculiar way. But I'm thinking my comedy might be a little bit about driving around in my art car and being a nude model who's kind of shy. And as a little kid, I wanted mentors and I wanted to push my dad and mom to get on stage and I wanted them to be famous with the hopes that they would become famous and successful and then they can help promote me and then help me become famous. And when I say famous, I know it sounds silly. What I mean by that is just communicating with an audience. Like when I was a little kid in my bedroom, I didn't have imaginary friends. I had an imaginary audience. I remember taking bubble baths as a little kid, and I had like my little bath toys, and I would have like a little show. I'd be like do 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 do. I'd be like singing, and I would have like a little plastic rubber ducky and like a little. I had little boats. I don't remember having a rubber ducky. I probably did, but I mostly remember having little rubber boats, like a little. I had a little boat, and I was like when I had like Barbie dolls and I would like play like with my Barbie dolls, but I would be doing a show in front of people. I don't know if I played Barbie in a normal kind of way, like let's pretend like I'm married to Ken and we live in a house together. I was more like, hey, everybody, I'm Barbie. And I would be like, I'm going to sing and dance for you now. And I was like singing and dancing and wanting to act and sing and dance and have like a Barbie show. And I had a Winnebago for my Barbie and I used to like, let's go on an adventure. And I was thinking that there was a camera crew following me, like me as Barbie in her Winnebago, a camera crew would be following us. And I remember being 13 years old. Um, Riding the school bus to and from school. And I remember looking out the window and I would be gazing. I'd be like gazing out the window, daydreaming. And I was secretly fantasizing that somebody was filming me. So I think I've always wanted to be kind of an actor because not everyone sits on the school bus and wishes that somebody was filming them. So I always wanted to be filmed. I'd be like running on the beach and in fact, one time I went on a camping trip as an 11-year-old, or was like 11 or 12, and I was in my alternative hippie school that my mom put me in on Whidbey Island called House. And we were on a camping trip, and one of the parents of one of my kid friends filmed us. And I never saw the film. I don't know what happened to that film, but me and my friend were running on the beach, and this guy named Larry Dobson, he filmed us. And man, I wish I had that video. Larry Dobson actually was a great performer. He passed away a few years ago from an illness, but his son, Ian Dobson, plays drums. And I remember as a little kid, Ian said, I'm going to grow up and be a drummer. And indeed he is. He's a steel drum. Ian Dobson is a performer and he plays steel drums. And I went to school with him. And it's inspiring to know that Ian Dobson stayed with drumming. And his dad, um, Larry Dobson, did magic shows and he performed on stilts. He was a magical person. And all my best childhood memories are of involve performing arts, involve music, theater, dance, acting, comedy, me watching comedians, me listening to actors, singers, dancers, me dancing to music that I liked. I remember getting my allowance and an adult bought me a record player and it was in my bedroom. And I remember I took my money and the first single I bought to listen to rock and roll in my bedroom was You're as Cold as Ice. Is that by Foreigner? You're as cold as ice, willing to sacrifice. As a third grader, that's the song I wanted to buy. You're as cold as ice. And I remember playing it in my stereo in my bedroom when I was like first or second grade. I don't know what age I was, first or second or third grade in San Diego and where I grew up. And I was like rocking out. I was like, yeah, I'm playing rock and roll. It was like kind of soft rock, You're as Cold as Ice by Foreigner. It was kind of a soft rock song, I guess, or top 40 hit. I don't know. But I remember thinking, yeah, I'm listening to rock and roll in my bedroom by myself. I thought I was so cool. And then my memory of we had a stage mother next door who had daughters named Chrissy and Lori, and they were going to LA all the time to audition. And I was like, what's LA? I was like in San Diego. I was like, what's LA? I thought LA was some mysterious magical place. And they're auditioning. And I was like, I wish my mom would send me out on auditions to LA, Los Angeles. I didn't know it was Los Angeles. LA meant LA. I thought it was spelled ALAL or something. LLA. I thought it was phonetically ALAL or something. ALA. LA. I thought it was, yeah, spelled AL something as a little kid. And I didn't realize it was Los Angeles, L dot A for short. I had no idea as a little kid in San Diego. So I just had these memories of that, Chrissy and Lori, and feeling, I wish my mom would, help me get on stage because I'm a little shy. And I felt like I needed a mentor and I needed an agent. I needed an agent to help send me out on auditions, and encourage me. I think as a little kid, I needed more encouragement. I needed more mentorship. But my parents were trying to get their careers and love lives together, and they're nice. people, okay, but they just were distracted. And so that's really part of my challenge is being a sensitive, slightly shy little sensitive kid, and yet I wanted like, and so in grade school and junior high and high school, I did have teachers that encouraged me and focused on seeing that I was a good writer. I remember being in third grade and writing a story longer than all the other kids. I think the teacher said write a one-page story, and I wrote a three-page story, and the instructor was like, "Whoa, you really got into this." And I wrote this like story about a big house with a staircase and lots of rooms, and there was a spiral staircase, and I don't remember what happened. There was ghosts, and there was like a bunch of people in a house, and there was ghosts, and there was dogs and cats and probably goats and pets and all kinds of animals. And I used to go to the zoo every Tuesday with my grandpa in San Diego. And we used to drive around in our car, and I wanted our car to say, "I'm Shannon Kringen, and I'm going to the zoo with my grandpa every Tuesday, everybody. And I like seals. My favorite animal is the seal." And and I would run to the zoo and go, "Come on, Grandpa." And I would like drag him, run with him. I would pull him through the zoo and go, "Come on, Grandpa." I was so excited about being at the zoo. So these are the things that I'm running on the beach in San Diego and secretly wanting people to film me. Like I wanted to like, sing and dance and act and be like Shirley Temple. And it's like, and then in high school, I was in it, I imitated Mick Jagger in front of my entire high school. It was the funnest thing I ever did. And yet it was shy. And people are like, "Oh my God, we thought she was shy." And she's danced around like gyrating around like Mick Jagger in front of my whole high school when I was like 17 years old. And that was the by far the funnest high school memory I ever had. And then I used to go to the junior high and high school dances, and I used to may or may not have anybody with me to dance a guy. There was no guy dancing with me. So I just get out there and dance by myself, and I would just be dancing around, acting like Mick Jagger. And I was strutting around like Mick Jagger and imitating Mick Jagger, and people thought it was ridiculous. And maybe I was trying to be a comedian because I think people thought I was just a weirdo and they didn't know if they were supposed to laugh at me or not. And I did get picked on in high school. So I'm just thinking about all these thoughts about, man, I've never done it's like 8:28 in the morning, and it's like May 7th, 2025. And so I'm just excited about writing comedy. In the year 2025, I'm going to write comedy about my art car, about my career, maybe a few things about my childhood, about wishing I had more mentors as a kid. And then I had people in junior high and high school who encouraged me and to write. And I used to get A's on most of my papers where I got to write, whenever we had a class where we had to write essays and I wrote my own philosophy down, or I wrote insights about, I had a class called Film is Art. One of my favorite classes in high school was called Film is Art. And we would watch movies and we wouldn't do a plot summary. We would talk about the motifs and the metaphors and the foreshadowing. And we would watch like Alfred Hitchcock films and Sam Peckinpah films and, um, film noir and the Maltese Falcon and the Treasure of the Sierra Madre and all these Casablanca and all these really cool Humphrey Bogart movies. And I absolutely loved the Alfred Hitchcock and Humphrey Bogart movies that I saw and I wrote papers on, and I got A's on every paper. I would ace those papers. So this is what I'm good at. Like maybe I'm socially awkward, okay, whatever. I never got married, I never had kids, I'm an only child, whatever. Maybe I'm lonely sometimes, but what I'm good at is my art. I'm good at visual art, writing poetry, turning it into music. I do these video monologues. I ramble on. I'm not particularly popular on this YouTube channel, but that's okay. I'm here sharing. I want to write some comedy about my career as an art model. And then the instructor last night, he brainstormed on the whiteboard and he's like, "Wow, you've been modeling for 33 years. Wow, you've been medical modeling for 25 years or 27 years. I've done physical exams. I'm pretend to be a patient for medical students, and they examine me from head to toe, and they do gyne exams, breast exams, eye, ears, nose, throat. They check my heart, they check my lungs, they check all my vital signs, they check my temperature, they check my pupils in my eyes, they look in my ears, they look at my nose, they do all of it. They check my thyroid, everything. I know where all my glands are, latissimus dorsi. I know some of the intraclavicular the lymph nodes, the trabecular, I forgot the names now, but I love it when they say all the Latin medical terms. I'm fascinated by medicine. I'm fascinated by the anatomy in terms of art and in terms of medical. So I've had an interesting career and I'm continuing to do, I do now simulations. It's called sim, where there's like a fake person lying in a hospital bed and you act out that you're a family member of this fake silicone person, and then there's somebody doing the voice in the other room, and you act scenarios out and you help train the medical students. I've been an ultrasound model for medical students. I have um, so my career as a medical and art model is interesting, and I'm comfortable being nude in front of people and having them draw me. I secretly wanted to be filmed as a kid, on the school bus. I secretly wanted to, and then there was a thing. Oh yeah, in San Diego there was Jesse and Lori who were literally across the street, and they had a stage mother named Beverly, and my mom was like, I don't want to be, no, my mom was not into that. My mom is more of an introvert and more private. And I was like, come on, mom. I wanted her to like help me, audition or get on stage or something. But I was just too shy. And so it just kind of got a little stifled in me. And then I was like, come on, I want to be Shirley Temple. And I don't even know if the adults around me knew this, but I had my own secret world going on. And in junior high and high school, I dabbled in it. I auditioned and I got into the choir. I sang in the choir. I was in a couple plays. I imitated Mick Jagger. I did a few things. I auditioned, got into Cornish. I danced at the Lusty Lady. I mean, I've done all kinds of things. One of my jobs was dancing at the Lusty Lady in my 20s. Now I'm an art model. I started art modeling in 1992. So it's like art modeling, medical modeling. I drive around in my art car. I'm in the parade. I mean, I'm comfortable doing these things. Now I'm in a play, hopefully, that's going to take place at the end of May 2025. We're going to perform on what is it called? Pants on Fire. I'll link it in the description below of this video on YouTube here. I'm going to upload this to YouTube, but um, it's Pants on Fire. It's like a variety of plays, and we're performing it at the Seattle Center Armory near the Armory building in the theater. So we're performing that, and we're doing three performances. We're doing a Friday night, a Saturday night, and a Sunday. So it's like Friday, May 30th, Saturday, May 31st, and Sunday, June 1st. And we're performing it three times. And I play a crisis counselor that's interacting with a vampire. So it's a little bit surrealistic unless you believe in vampires. So I'm in a play and I'm excited about that, and I need to memorize my lines. And but what I really want to do, because I'm also doing music and I'm writing poetry and turning into music with Dave Flowers from Interactive Jack Records in Seattle, and I am excited to pursue this and continue doing this and realize that this is what I'm good at, is all these things. I'm not good at getting married and having kids and having a normal job. I am really good at having an unusual job, which is art modeling, medical modeling. I also love animals. I'm a pet sitter, dog walker. I love dogs and cats. I would love to take care of goats. I had goats in junior high. I've always been comfortable being nude in front of people. I've always, I like to, I hang out in nature with not wearing any, I'm kind of a little bit of a nudist slash, not really nudist, but more of a naturist, like a natural human being. When I go to the zoo, I like observing that the animals are natural, they're mating, they're going to the bathroom, they're not embarrassed, they're just being natural. They're not wearing anything, obviously, except fur. Humans don't have fur, we just have regular skin. But it's kind of like when I model, I'm trying to look aesthetically pleasing, and pose and twist and turn and hold still and try to look aesthetic. But there's this other part of me that thinks I'm a regular human being. I'm a natural human being, not wearing any clothing. And I'm just here to just sit and stare off into space and hold still so that they can observe and draw and learn about drawing a natural human being. So I'm just going to brainstorm these comedy ideas and make observations about, yeah, and then it's just not, and, oh, and then it's and then on Whidbey Island, see, in San Diego there was Chrissy and Lori, the girls that lived across the street, and their mother Beverly, who was kind of an audition like stage mom, helping promote them and get them auditions in LA and on stage. And then when we moved to Whidbey Island, there was Abby and Jesse and their mother, what's their mother's name? Abby and Jesse, Peggy, their mother's name, Abby and Jesse DeLears, and their mother Peggy. and they were performing kids. They were two other girls. So there was Chrissy and Lori and Abby and Jesse. It's an interesting pattern, like two sisters, Abby, Jesse, Chrissy, Lori. And I was witnessing that their mom even actually, I think I was on a radio show. Their mom, Peggy, had some kind of radio thing. We lived on Whidbey Island, but in Seattle, there was a radio show in 1981 or two or three. And I might have been on a radio show briefly as a little kid, but I was probably too shy to say much of anything. But I remember going with Abby and Jesse and their mother, Peggy. And I just remember, and I even wrote them a letter when I was 13. I wrote Abby and Jesse. I said, "Hey, will you take me under your wing and help like mentor me?" I don't know if I even knew the word mentor, but I was asking them, could they be my career coach? I was and they told me that I just had to go and do it myself. And oh, just go audition, just go do it. We can't, we're not your agent. But I remember as a little kid, I reached out to them and I wanted them to like help me like audition. I feel like I needed somebody to say it's okay if you're shy, just audition anyway. Just don't worry about being shy, just get up there and do it. So it's kind of like I wanted more encouragement as a little kid. So now as an adult, my job is to find mentors. Like for a while I felt ashamed like I should just do everything myself and like, well, I didn't learn how to do it as a kid, so now that I'm 56, I better just do it myself. And it's like, okay, I realize I do need to do more of that to be a self-actualized, individuated adult, Shannon Kringen. I do need to do as much, be my own best friend to the best of my ability. And it is my responsibility as an adult to try to promote myself and not let my shyness stop me from doing things that I want to do and audition for things. And um, But I also realized that people do need mentors. That's why I'm taking an acting class. Why I've taken several acting classes because there's a community of support. There's a teacher, there's fellow students, there's fellow classmates. We brainstorm with each other, we support each other. This is what was missing from my childhood is that I was trying to do things mostly on my own. It's like I didn't learn certain skills about how to be with community and how to like have mentors and reach out, have like a peer group that is supportive. And the acting teacher last night reminded us that when you go on stage and you want people to laugh, it's like you have to teach the audience that it's okay to laugh. You have to make the audience feel safe because apparently there's some mean audiences that will heckle you or whatever. Then you can turn that into a joke. I suppose if somebody heckles me, I can turn that into a joke and just make fun of that and make fun of it on the spot as an improv. But generally, the audience, when they show up to a comedy show, they want the comedian to be funny. They want the comedian to succeed. They're hopefully not sitting there being critics. I mean, there are some people that are very critical, but generally, you need to think of the audience as neutral and that they're open to laughing and that they're hoping that you're going to make them laugh. And so you have to have this attitude of that the audience believes in you and wants you to succeed and they hope that you will make them laugh. And so it's like you have to give them permission. Like I kind of want in my comedy routine, I kind of want to poke fun at the weirdness of myself. Like um, when I did my public access TV show, people thought I was on drugs because I would stare into the camera and go, "Ooh, ooh," and part of what I was known as for being Goddess Kring was going, moving my hands around and dancing around and ooh, and you could say I was trying to be funny. Maybe I was. One time I wore like a fake, wasn't real. It was a fake gorilla chest. It was a fake plastic gorilla chest as opposed to a real gorilla chest. I didn't have any real, I only had a fake one. So I put a gorilla chest on and I danced around once in that. And it was kind of like, that's my way of trying to be funny. I think I was trying to be funny. I held up caution tape. I wrapped my torso in caution tape. I think I even had one that said crime scene. And I was like, "Oh, crime scene." And I was like, sort of making fun of. I actually was having psychological challenges, but I was sort of trying to be funny. I think that I didn't even realize I was trying to be funny, but I was kind of being dark funny, dark humor. So I think I could tell stories about my public access show, about one time there was an earthquake when I was modeling. I was figure modeling here in Seattle, at the University of Washington. And this was way back when there was an earthquake. Was that 2001 or something? On February 28th, there was a famous earthquake in Seattle, and I think it was 2001. I think that was the year, 2001 maybe. And I had just put my robe back on. I don't really wear a robe as a model. I wear a dress. I just put my dress back on. But generally, figure models wear robes on their breaks. They take a 5 minute break, put the robe on, then they pose on the model stand without wearing anything, and just as I put my robe back on, the room started shaking, and we had to evacuate the building. Otherwise, I would have had to like run out there naked. No, I know that I was definitely going to put something on before I ran outside, but I was like, I got to get my shoes on. I didn't want to leave my shoes in the room. So I ended up having to put my stuff on really fast, grab my backpack and run outside with everybody else. And the room was fine. We got back in there after the earthquake. We went back in there, I think, but there wasn't that much damage. But just in case the building was gonna, have really bad damage and collapse or something like that. But that was like so I have an earthquake story. So I have different stories. I'm thinking about my modeling career, the last 33 years, and I'm still modeling. I can think about all the unusual things that have happened to me. One time I had a really cool gig at the Seattle Art Museum, twice at the Seattle Art Museum. I got to dress up in costume like Helga from an Andrew Wyeth painting. He's a famous painter. And I got to dress up and put my hair in braids and dress up like an Andrew Wyeth painting. One of the people he painted was named Helga, and I got to dress up like her and pose at the Seattle Art Museum in front of the public. That was really fun. And I don't know if that's funny though, but I can just tell these unusual stories about different modeling gigs I've had. I was in that film American Heart, and I got to meet Jeff Bridges. I can maybe tell a story about that and about how I stood out on the street corner with a bunch of punk rockers, and I was wearing such bright head painted clothing that I made that the director even told me to stand farther away from the camera. So that's interesting. And then the John Singer Sargent is another famous painter, John Singer Sargent, and at the Seattle Art Museum, they had a show of his, and they hired me for 3 months. I was one of them. There was me and a few other models, and I got to wear a black bodysuit every day. And for 3 months, not every day, but for a few days a week for like 3 months, I was in this room with these costumes, no, not Andrew Wyeth, John Singer Sargent. I think he's from the 1800s. What year is he from? He painted in the 1800s or the early 1900s. I can't remember, but John Singer Sargent. Was a very famous painter a long time ago, and he was known for painting very loose. He did very, if you go really close to John Singer Sargent's paintings, they look really loose and kind of almost like loose sketches. But then if you go far away, they look more and more realistic the farther away you stand. It's a very interesting technique that he had. I like his technique. But I got to model there for 3 months, and so I can probably tell stories about these different scenarios, these different art modeling scenarios that I've had and worked with other models. I've worked with up to four other models on the platform at the same time. And we've had people painting a narrative painting of five different figure models, me and four other people on stage. The longest pose I ever did was 6 hours a day for 15 days in a row, Monday through Friday for 3 weeks in a row. Um, my phone keeps beeping at me. So this is just an interesting brainstorm, like Shannon Kringen's comedy ideas. This is the monologue that's called Shannon, because I tend to go off on a lot of tangents. Shannon Kringen's and the idea of doing comedy too appeals to me because comedians are kind of rebellious. Comedians break rules. It's like you're allowed to break rules. In some ways, if you break rules, you get in trouble. But actors and comedians, they get to go on stage and sort of break rules without getting in trouble. So it's kind of like a fun, playful way of making ourselves laugh or be entertained. And we get to sort of bend the rules and be playful and share with people. So my whole life, I just realized that I've always thought of myself as shy and introverted and kind of a loner, and yet I've always wanted to be on stage. And not all little kids have imaginary audiences in their bedroom with them as a little kid. Did you? I don't know. When you were a little kid in your bedroom, did you imagine there was an audience or did you imagine there was friends? I always thought there would be an audience there, and I'd be singing and dancing and saying funny things and making people laugh and just somehow being entertaining for people. That's kind of what I wanted to do. And when I model in front of people, I like, I'm sitting here and they're painting, they're all going to make a nice painting of me. And I like that. They're going to draw. They're all going to do drawings of me. This is cool. So these are some of the thoughts that I have. So this video monologue is called Shannon Kringen's Comedy Ideas. So art modeling, medical modeling, my art car, my childhood of wanting I was a stage kid wanting to get, come on, mom and dad, get on stage, do your thing. And they didn't want to. They didn't want to do that. They were more introverted than me. And I was just like, I'd be like Shirley Temple. But I don't know if I ever really told anybody that. But I remember as a little kid having these like secret thoughts. And just sort of dabbling in, I was in the choir. I took a tap dance class. I took a ballet dance. I wasn't really an amazing dancer. I wanted to be an amazing dancer, but I was like, I was a little dyslexic and left-footed or whatever they say. Well, I am left-handed and left-footed, actually, literally left-footed and left-handed. But I was an only child, so I had no siblings to like, you know, I had no siblings to play with, and so I just played with myself in my bedroom. I just played on my own, and I would play with myself. But yeah, I had my own way of. But I always wanted to have a show, like sitting in the bathtub, having like doing my bubble baths as a little kid. I wanted there to be like a little Shannon show. This is the Shannon show. I don't know what I would call it, but I would just pretend like I had a microphone. I'd be like, "Hi, everybody. My name is Shannon, and I like to go to the zoo with my grandpa every Tuesday, and I like to swing on, I like to, I wanted to like do like a show and tell. And then the irony is that when we had show and tell in third grade, I remember I was too shy to do it. I didn't do it. I think I got out of it somehow. I chickened out. So I didn't do show and tell, but I secretly wanted to do show and tell. And then I was afraid to actually do show and tell. And that's why I did my public access TV show because they told me if you just videotape, if you make a video, we'll air it. So I would make videotapes at home in my apartment and then put them on public access television, just like I'm doing right now, videotaping myself. And so I'm taking acting classes. I am finally not as shy as I used to be. So now I can actually talk in front of other people in an acting class. But I do kind of tend to hold back. In fact, when I auditioned for Cornish, I had to do a little bit of a Sam Shepard play. Was it True West? I'm not sure. Sam Shepard play. I did a little bit of Romeo and Juliet Shakespeare, and I a cappella sang part of a Tom Petty song called You and I Will Meet Again. They're like, who's the composer? I said, Tom Petty. And they're like, oh, nobody's ever done. And they looked at me like they didn't know who Tom Petty was. They're like, okay, nobody's ever done a Tom Petty song before. I sang an a cappella Tom Petty song, and they accepted me into Cornish, but they made me do the shake. They said that I did fine with the Sam Shepard play. But they made me do the Shakespeare one like 3 or 4 times. They're like, do it again, you're holding back. Do it again, you're holding back. Do it again, you're holding back. So it's kind of like maybe I'm too much of an introvert to really be a stage actor. Maybe I would be better acting in film because they say film actors need to be more subtle. And when I act with medical students, they say I'm really realistic and I never overact because sometimes actors I have to be told to like, okay, don't overact, but don't underact. I'm on the side of being more realistic. I'm more subtle. The way I act with medical students is kind of subtle. And I'm sort of a method actor. I sort of blend my real self with the character that I'm playing. Um, so yeah, so I've always been interested in acting ever since I was a little kid, and I've always been interested in music. I'm learning to play guitar. I know 3 chords on my guitar now. I'll do another video where I play my guitar. Um, I forgot the names of the chords. It's G. I know one of them is G, but I put my hand on top of the frets. G and then A minor and F minor. Is that what it is? Is it A and F minor and G? Maybe. I don't know, but I'll show you next time on another video. I'll play my guitar into the camera. So acting, music, comedy. Okay, so comedy. So I can make fun of all of the unusual things that I've done with my life and maybe poke fun at the fact that I never got married and had kids, but I definitely feel comfortable being naked in front of people and doing public access performance art for 15 years on public television. So I think I'm going to talk about all that. So there, that's it for now. That's a wrap. Shannon Nicole Kringen wrapping it up. Okay, there's my real eyes. Hello. Bye. Okay, bye for now. Have a nice day. I'm inspired. I'm inspired to write comedy and see what I can come up with. Bye for now.